All right, today we're going to talk about angle and line relationships. Here's what you need to know. Two angles are vertical. We call them vertical angles if they're opposite angles formed by the intersection of two lines. We have two lines that intersect each other. The angles are vertical if they're opposite, which 1 and 3 and 4 and 2 would be considered vertical angles. They're opposite of each other. Vertical angles are congruent, meaning they're equal to each other. So angle 1 is congruent to angle 3. And angle 2 is congruent to angle 4. Vertical lines are equal. Congruent means equal. So if I knew that angle 1 was, let's say, 30 degrees, angle 3 would be 30 degrees as well. If this was 150, then 2 would have to be 150. So I know two angles, what they are, just if I only am given information on one. If I'm given information on one, I know what this one is. I also know what this one is, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. You need to write this down. Two angles are adjacent. We say they're adjacent, which means they're side by side if they share a common vertex, which should be angle B, a common side, which would be this line, and do not overlap. Angle 5 and angle 6 don't overlap. They have a common vertex and a common side, so they're considered adjacent. They touch. All right? Any questions about adjacent? Write this down. Two angles are said to be complementary if the sum of their measures is 90 degrees. If they add up to 90, which they do. Now 1 and 2 here, angles 1 and 2, they're adjacent. But does this say they have to be adjacent to be complementary? No. No, they can be completely separate. They can be on opposite sides of a graph or vertical angles. All right, if they're both 45, they would be considered complementary because they add up to 90. Two angles are supplementary if the sum is add up to 180. Now, this does not say they have to be adjacent. They don't have to touch. It just shows you an adjacent angle that adds up to 180. Angle 1 and 2 here add up to 180. How I remember it, which one's which, is C becomes before S, and 90 becomes 480. So complementary is 90, supplementary is 180. Right? That's how I come up. That's how I think. What one comes first? C comes first, and so does 90. So if it says, are these complementary? You need to know, do they add up to 90? All right? You need to write this down. Perpendicular lines. Where two lines intersect to form a right angle. Perpendicular, when two lines are perpendicular, that means they form a right angle, which there's going to be 4 right angles here. They use that little square in the corner so you know this is a right angle. So angle L and angle M are perpendicular of each other. All right? They would actually do this. Line L is perpendicular to M. That's that little upside down T. That's what they use to signify if it's perpendicular or not. Any questions? All right, you need to write this down. All right, so your homework's going to give you something like this. They're going to give you a picture of two angles, angle Y and angle X. It says classify the relationship. So someone raise their hand and tell me what this would be classified as. You know what it is? It is. Gowdy? They're not perpendicular, no. They don't intersect the right. Gracie, you got an idea? They are supplementary. They add up to 180. Good. Okay, the other one would be what? It would be adjacent if they're together. This is how the book drew it. If they're together, then it would be adjacent. But I don't really know if these are. But they would be supplementary. They add up to 180. So, supplementary would be my answer. Now, measure of angle Y is equal to 135 degrees. What's the measure of angle X? Someone raise your hand and tell me how I would find that. Brady.
30 or 45.
How do I find that, though? How do I find measure of angle X?
Take 180 minus 135.
180 minus 135, which you get 45 degrees. Good. Because let's think about it. Angle X and angle Y. Angle Y is 135. When added to X, you should get 180. They're supplementary. So to get X by itself, I'd subtract 135 from both sides. X would have to be 45 degrees. Any questions on how to do that? Write this down. Angle R and angle S are complementary. If the measure of angle R is 65.3, what's the measure of angle S? Someone raise your hand and tell me what R and S add up to.
90.
It would be 90. Complementary is 90. So the measure of angle R plus the measure of angle S adds up to 90. Measure of angle R is 65.3. I got to figure out what the measure of angle S is. So I subtract 65.3 from 90. S would be what? 25.7.
Yeah, that.
Any questions? Actually, it'd be 24, not 25. Any questions? All right, so it says these two angles are complementary angles. Angle 1 is 51 degrees. Angle 2 is X degrees. So I know complementary is 90, so I subtract 51 from 90. And I would get 39 degrees. So angle X is 39 degrees. Any questions? Write this down. Parallel lines are two lines that are in the same plane that never intersect. They have the same slope. We talked about this before. They will never touch each other because they don't intersect. They have the same slope. It's like railroad tracks. Do they ever cross each other?
Wait, yeah, they do. Oh, yeah.
No.
No. How could they? If the two tracks crossed, how could the train stay on it? Right? Now you have tracks that veer off, that split, right, and go two separate ways. But there's always two tracks that are side by side that never touch. Same thing with tires. Your tires on your car ever touch?
No.
If they do, you've got a problem. Okay? Right? But they stay parallel of each other and they never touch. Now, S and T are parallel lines, so they'll say line S is parallel to line T. They use two parallel lines in between the line names to show that they're parallel. So now you know what that looks like. Any questions?
No.
All right, you need to write this down. This is lines M and P which are parallel, and they have what's called a transversal. This line that cuts through two parallel lines is called a transversal. And what it does is it creates some unique angles here, which we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. What we need to know about those unique angles is this. Interior angles, they lie inside the parallel lines. So the interior angles here are 4, 3, 5, and 6. They're inside M and P. And then you have exterior angles, and they're outside the parallel lines, which is 1, 2, 8, and 7. Any questions about that? You don't have to draw a figure. You've already drawn that. What you need to do is write down alternate interior and alternate exterior and then corresponding angles. All right, so we've got our figure here of lines M and P with the transversal. We need to figure out what the alternate interior angles are. We talked about interior angles. They're the angles inside parallel lines. The unique thing about those are that alternate interior angles are congruent to each other. They have the same angle measure. So if I said the angle 3 is congruent to a different angle, what would that angle be? It's not 6, right? You can tell they don't have the same angle measure, but it would be angle 5 because they're on opposite sides of each other. They say that they're alternate interior. They're opposite each other, so they're on opposite sides, the alternate, and they're both interior, and they're equal to each other. If I knew what angle 3 was, I know what angle 5 is. The other alternate interior angles would be angle 4 and angle 6. If I knew what 4 is, I know what 6 is. You can look and just tell that they have the same angle measure, and you know that by the alternate interior angles. They're opposite sides of each other and they're on the inside. Then you have alternate exterior angles. Angle 1 is congruent to a different angle. Okay? And we know that by the alternate exterior angle that says if they're on opposite sides and they're outside the parallel lines, then they're congruent. So angle 1 is congruent to angle. Anyone want to take a guess?
7.
It would be 7. And angle 2 is congruent to angle 8. All right, now let's identify corresponding angles. Corresponding angles, what you need to know about them, is they're on the same side of the transversal. Here's the transversal. So they're on the same side of it, and they're equal to each other. So angle 1 is corresponding to what other angle?
5. Angle
5. Angle 5.
Oh.
It's equal to angle 5, and it's on the same side. So what we call that is corresponding angles. Angle 2 is corresponding to angle 6. They're on the same side of the transversal and they're equal to each other. Angle 3 is congruent to angle 7. Okay, same side of the transversal, equal to each other. And then angle 4 is congruent to angle 8. So really, looking at this, if I know one angle, I pretty much know them all. Actually, I do know them all. And let me show it to you. You don't have to write this down, just please pay attention. Let's say I knew that angle 1 is 70 degrees. Would I know what angle 2 is? Based off what I've learned as of yesterday and today about the relationships. Vertical angles, corresponding alternate interior, alternate exterior, complementary, supplementary. Would I know what angle 2 would be? Is angle 1 and 2 supplementary angles? Aren't they equal to 180? So angle 2 would have to be what? 110. So if I know angle 1, I know angle 2. Well, guess what? If I know angle 1, I also know angle 3 because they're vertical angles. They're opposites of each other, meaning they're equal. And if I know what 3 is, I know what 5 is because of alternate interior angles. Or, hold on. Yeah, 3 should be 70 degrees. Sorry. Yeah, I was off. If I know that angle 3 is 70 degrees, I know angle 5 is 70 degrees. Because of alternate exterior angles, or interior angles. I also know angle 5 is 70 because 1 and 5 are corresponding. So if I know angle 1, I know angle 5. If I know angle 5, then I know angle 7. Because they're vertical angles. Also because 1 and 7 are alternate exterior angles. And if I know that 2 is 110, then I know 8 is 110 because they're alternate exterior angles as well. And if I know 8 is 110, I know 4 is 110 because 4 and 8 are corresponding angles. So I've been able to, which I know angle 6 is 110 because 2 and 6 are corresponding. So just knowing one angle, I now know 8. Right? If I know one, then I can use all the relationships that we have to figure out what the others are. And that's what you're going to do here. So you need to copy this down. So this is a lot of what you're going to see in your homework. It's going to give you 2 parallel lines with transversal. In this case, this has 2 transversals. And it's going to say classify angles. It's going to pick 2 angles and say classify. So what you got to go through is you got to go through your list and figure out which ones are they. What does it fit? So think about it. If we start on the first slide, are angles 3 and 5 vertical angles? Are they opposite of each other? No. So then we go to complementary angles. Are they complementary angles?
No.
I can't tell. Right? Can't tell if they equal 90. I don't think so. Are they supplementary angles? Do they add up to 180? Can't tell. Right? So then I go to alternate interior angles. Are they alternate interior angles?
Yeah.
Are they inside the parallel lines and on opposite sides?
Yeah.
Yep, so they're alternate interior angles. That's all you do. You go through your list and figure out which one it is. So then it says, if measure of angle 1 is 120 degrees, find measure of angle 5 and measure of angle 3. Well, can anyone tell me what measure of angle 5 is?
Same 120.
Hey, Brody, tell me why you think measure of angle 5 is 120 degrees.
Just like one.
It looks just like 1, but what's the relationship between 1 and 5? They are corresponding angles, right? Corresponding angles are congruent. Someone tell me the measure of angle 3 and why you think it is that way. Jacob, tell me why you think it's that.
Because they have to equal 180.
Measure of angle 3 and measure of angle what have to equal 180? 1? No.
5.
No, they don't have to equal 180.
4.
Measured 3 of 4, but do I know what 4 is? No. How could I find what the measure of angle 3 is? Well, what is it, Brady?
You find the measure of number 1.
What is the measure of angle 1?
It's 120.
So what's the measure of angle 3? 120. Those are vertical angles. 1 and 3 are vertical. They're opposite of each other. Does everybody see that? See how they're opposite? That means they're congruent. Means they're equal. I could have found out measure of angle 3 because I know 5 and 3 are alternate interior angles. So there's two different ways of finding a measure of angle 3. 5 and 3 or 1 and 3. You're still going to get the same answer. Alright? Alright, you don't have to copy the figure, you already have it. But what you need to do is write down the questions beside it. You're asked to classify 9 and 13. So what I do is I go through my list. Is 9 and 13 vertical angles?
No.
Are they on the opposite side of each other? No, 12 is a vertical angle of 9. So that is not vertical. So then, you think complementary or supplementary? Usually when you're asking to classify these, that's not going to be the case. When they're opposite, when they're away from each other, it's usually not complementary or supplementary. Usually those are adjacent to each other. Okay? Because I can't tell if they add up to 90. I'm not for sure. Does it tell me how much 9 is? No. So I can't tell. So it's not complementary. Guess what? It's probably not supplementary either. They don't add up to 180. I guarantee you they don't. So really what you've done is you've narrowed it down to 4. It's either vertical, alternate interior, alternate exterior, or corresponding. Those are usually the 4 answers you're going to use. We already eliminated vertical. So we're down to alternate interior, alternate exterior, and corresponding. Alternate interior means it's on the inside of the parallel lines. Here's your parallel lines. Is 9 on the inside of these two parallel lines?
No.
No. So could it be alternate interior angles?
No.
No. So we will look. Alternate exterior corresponding. Could it be alternate exterior? Is 13 an exterior angle?
No.
No, it's on the inside. So it can't be vertical, it can't be supplementary, it can't be complementary, it can't be alternate interior, and it can't be alternate exterior. What's left?
Corresponding.
Corresponding. Are they on the same side of the transversal? Yes. Are they equal to each other?
Yes.
Then they're considered corresponding. That is not very hard to do. All you have to have done is paid attention. And I appreciate the 3 or 4 that got it right. Thank you. Now, you're supposed to find the measure of 13. They say it's 75 degrees. So now you need to know measure of angle 11 and measure of angle 15. Well, if 13 is 75, then 15. The measure of angle 15 has to be 75 degrees because they're vertical angles. They're opposite of each other. Then what I've got to do is I got to figure out what 11 is. Well, I can't use alternate interior angles because 13 and 11 are not. I can't use alternate exterior and I can't use corresponding. So instead what I got to do is I got to figure out the measure of one of these angles they're not asking for. How about 14? Could I figure out what 14 is?
Yes.
Wait.
Okay, 13 and 14 are supplementary angles. What do they add up to?
180.
180. So what's 180 minus 75? So you're telling me angle 14 is 105 degrees. Now could I find angle 11? Based off what? What relationship? No, 14 and 11 are on opposite sides. So what's the word when they're on opposite sides? Alternate. And are they interior or exterior angles? Exterior. So based off alternate exterior angles, I know what 11 is. What is the measure of angle 11? 105. Hey, here's another way. Let me throw you, because there's 100 different ways of finding one angle. I could find angle 11 because I know that angle 16 is 105, right? Because 75 from 180 is 105, which 14 and 16 are vertical angles. And isn't 11 and 16 corresponding angles? So if I know 16, I know what 11 is. Well, also I could find that angle 9 is 75 degrees. That's why I told you they're not supplementary and they're not corresponding. They're the same angle. And what's 180 minus 75? 105. So there's about 10 different ways of figuring out what a measure of angle 11 is. All you got to do is come up with one of those ways. Think about your relationships. I've given you 6 different relationships. Use those. Write this down. Okay, you're told that the measure of ABD, so ABD is 164 degrees. This whole total thing is 164 degrees. Okay? You're told to find the measure of ABC and CBD. You know what angles they're asking for based off the middle letter? Okay? That's the vertex. ABC and CBD. Okay? They each have B for the vertex. So you know what they're asking. Now you know that ABC plus CBD adds up to 164 because it's this whole thing. It adds up to 164. So I'm going to write ABD plus CBD equals 164. Because when you add them up, this angle and that angle, it's a total of 164 degrees. And then I'm going to replace, or that shouldn't be ABD, it should be ABC. ABC, we know, is defined as 2x plus 23. Based off of that right there. And then we know CBD is defined as, any idea? X. Right there, X. So what I do is I add like terms first, 2x and x. I get 3x plus 23 is equal to 164. And then my goal is to get x by itself, which we've done all year long. So I look at what's being done to x. I'm timesing by 3 and then adding 23. So I go in the reverse order of that. I would subtract 23 first. So I've got 3x is equal to 141.
Yeah.
Then I would divide by 3. 141 divided by 3 gives me, anybody know? It's 47.
Oh my God.
Okay? 47. So I know what x is. So that means I know what CBD is. It's 47 degrees. I need to know ABC, which there is 2 ways of doing it. I'm going to show you both. The first way is plug in 47 for x and take 2 times 47 plus 23. The other way, can anyone guess? Any ideas?
47 from 1.
Divide 164.
Take 47 from 164. All right? Because you know what CBD is, and you know that ABC is everything left of that, whatever's left. So you can take 164 minus 47, or you can take 2 times 47 plus 23. 2 times 47 is 94. 94 plus 23 is 117. So there's your 2 answers. 47 degrees and 117 degrees. Which I can check. 164 minus 47 gives you 117. Any questions? Write this down. Angles RST and UVW are vertical angles, with the measure of angle RST equal 3/6 and the measure of UVW equal to 5x minus 36. You're supposed to find the value of x, and then you're asked to find the measure of UVW. Do they tell you what they add up to?
No.
Like they did on the problem before? No. Hey, what do they tell you about RST and UVW though?
5x minus 3x.
No, they tell you what they are, but what about the relationship between those two angles? They're vertical, which means they're what?
Straight. Right across.
Like this.
They don't equal each other.
Straight up.
Nah, I mean, if vertical angles do equal each other, don't they? They're opposite sides of each other, they're equal to each other. So I could say that RST is equal to UVW. Could I not? Vertical angles are congruent to each other, they're equal. So I know that RST is 3x, and I know that UVW is 5x minus 36. So what I want to do is I want to find what x is, so I got to get x on the same side. The easiest thing to do is subtract 5x to both sides, because I want to move 5x to the left. 3x minus 5x is negative 2x, equal to negative 36. So I would divide by negative 2, and I find that x is equal to 18. And then I'm asked to find UVW. So I can do it one of two ways. I know that RST and UVW are equal. So I can find RST, or I can find UVW, they'll be the same number. The way you should go is do UVW. So plug in 18 for x, and do 5 times 18 minus 36. And then check it with RST. 5 times 18 is 90. 90 minus 36 is what? 54. So UVW is 54 degrees. I can check it by seeing what RST is, because they're equal to each other. So 3 times 18, does anyone know what that is? 54. Alright, it's 54, so they must be the same. Any questions?
No.
Here's your homework assignment.